And we're live. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Satsang, that communion with the self you are, but don't know it. Almost seems like a bit of a cosmic joke, doesn't it? And it kind of is. It kind of is. I'm assuming you can all see me and hear me. I do check the audio regularly, and to make sure everything's working. You know, Buddha said that the odds against you being born a human, or the odds of you being born in a human, are actually greater than the odds, or less than the odds of a. Imagine a turtle swimming in the middle of the ocean, just swimming around. Huge ocean, right? What are the odds that that turtle is going to surface, stick his head above the water, and put it right in the middle of an inner tube? What do you think the odds of that are? Well, it's astronomical, obviously. And Buddha said that it was more likely that that would happen than you being born a human. So you kind of won the karmic lottery. Right? He went on to say that of those who are actually fortunate enough to be born a human, that the odds were even greater that that particular human would hear the Dharma in their lifetime. The Dharma being basically the non-dual truth being. What you hear here, what we talk about here. He then went on to say that the odds are even less in your favor, that the one who is born a human and hears the Dharma actually hears it, gets drawn to it, contemplates it, and practices it. Now, Sunday evening, Sunday afternoon, there's lots of things you could be doing. There's all sorts of other things that you could be doing, but you've chosen to come here. And you're human, and you've heard the Dharma, and you're contemplating and practicing it. You've won the cosmic lottery 3 times straight, and you didn't even buy a ticket. Now, those odds, what he was trying to point out was the utter rare opportunity it is to come face to face with this kind of a direct teaching, a direct discourse on the nature of your own being. To the degree that you ponder it, you think about it, you contemplate it, you do the practices of it, even when you're not listening to me or another teacher, that you really are serious about waking up, about discovering your true self, about knowing who you truly are. The rest of the world is engaged in mundane pursuits, looking mostly, first, second, third chakra stuff: status, wealth, progeny, success, health, the basic animal things that we share in like every other animal on the planet. But there is a point at which the development of the human being, of the human consciousness, has to look beyond. I think one of the things that spurred us as humans to look beyond, well, there were 2 things. One, I think, was our encounter with death. I mean, imagine You're out there, you're sitting next to somebody, right, in the village, and you're making pots or something, or you're making a rug, right? It's a million years ago, or the like, or you're out, hunting, with your with your buddy, and then all of a sudden they're gone, right? Body falls over, or gets stabbed, or something happens, and a moment ago you're having a conversation with them, and now they're gone. Where did they go? I think these kinds of things spurn us to they kind of invite, or they tickle consciousness to look deeper than on the surface. I think the other thing that has spurned it was simply the feminine energy, the body from which life emerges, and which for a big chunk of that, it literally nourishes. It is the food for it as well. So the earliest icons, little statues and the like, idols made, were goddesses, because of this complete and fascination with the mystery of this whole thing, a mystery that continues to this day. By the way, these things spurn us to look more deeply, to look beyond the everyday stuff, the accumulation of stuff, the trying to secure safety and the like, and they invite us to look beyond, to search for the deeper meaning, for the deeper purpose, and eventually, as consciousness matures and we come in contact with saints and sages, to look for the actual nature of existence itself, the beingness. Who am I? I can define myself in terms of what I do, right? I can define myself in terms of my relationships. I'm a male, and I have two sons and a grandson and a granddaughter and a grandson by marriage. I have relationships with friends. I have students and things around me. I could define myself in all sorts of different ways. I have X amount of money in the bank. This is what I do. But those are all very superficial, aren't they? They're not. There's nothing permanent about them. If you were born in a different culture, you'd have a completely different view of the world, different experiences, different everything. There's nothing about anything I'm experiencing right now that actually defines who I am. It's just where I happen to be, what I happen to be interacting with, what my nervous system is doing now, what things it's related to, where I came from, and all the conditioning. All of this, where am I? There's a point at which you really begin to see the magnitude of that question. And it's no longer just a curiosity. It's no longer just, some way of feeling better, or feeling spiritual, or having some kind of organizing principle or moral standards to meet while to live a quote unquote good life while you go about just surviving. It's a yearning to go beyond. That's a yearning that's felt in the heart. The mind is an influence. Our intellect is an influence. It's a very powerful tool for cutting through assumptions. But the thing that spurns us on, the thing that really creates that taste in our mouth, right? That yearning, that hunger, it comes from the heart. Something inside us just knows there's something beyond this. At first, we may think of it as some kind of supreme being, as a supreme person being, but eventually we come to see that it is the supreme being, the ultimate being, the only being there is, but it's not a person. It's not like the one being as opposed to all the other beings, right? It's not a person. It's not a principle, although that's probably closer than person. But the word principle sounds too impersonal, right? It's like an infinite person, which is completely inconceivable, but that's the nature of this. The non-dual journey, the actual journey to awakening, can't happen without that kind of one-pointed focus of attention. That's the case in all aspects of life. If you're going to do anything, it takes focus. Everything I did, every accomplishment I've ever had in my life, and I've had some significant ones, have been the result of just utter focus. So focused that at times people would talk to me and I didn't hear them. Right? I'd suddenly realize that I had to pee so bad I could barely walk because nothing else mattered except what I was focused on. Where you focus your attention, how diffused it is, will determine what things come into focus and what don't. This is true in every aspect of life, and it's equally true in the spiritual journey. This focus of attention on what matters most, which then naturally begins to kind of filter out and fall away and make fall away everything less than. As Ramana Maharshi put it, the desire for freedom eventually subsumes all other desires. He said it was like the stick that they used to stir the fire at a cremation. Right? When they're burning, they use the stick, put the wood back on. A body part falls off. They use it to throw it back on, and eventually, as it starts to burn down, and nothing is moving anymore, even the stick you use to stir the fire is thrown into the fire. Even the desire for freedom is let go of in the complete surrender to the truth. This is what's signified in Christ's willingness to surrender and say yes to his own death. Something most of us will resist tooth and claw. But this is really the symbol, what he represented to all of us is this completely submitting to what was put in biblical terms as the will of God. It's really the will of truth. It's the surrendering of everything you thought you were into kind of this incredible divine ignorance, or divine emptiness is better said, a divine not knowingness. And in that space of not knowing, well, that is the place in which truth can reveal itself. You can't figure it out. Truth has got to reveal itself. And it has to reveal itself to itself. So everything that's not you has to be purged away. And what will remain will be you. True, absolute you. Brahma, Vishnu, Shiva, all in one. So welcome once again to Satsang as I chatter on. Let's see here. Hello, everyone. Ava, IGP. Oops, wait. What happened? Where'd you go? Oh, is it? Namaste, G, my great master. Thank you for being here. Hello, everybody. David and Elaine. Hello, everyone. Southeast England, my good friends over there. Patricia in Vancouver. John Sheehan from Ireland. Lisa, hello. My rainy East Coast. Saludos to you. John Watson in Scotland. Hendrik from Lake Constance in southern Germany, I think, right? Is that Bavaria? Penny, hello, Sifu in Love. Victor, hello, Victor. Brian in Virginia. Hello to all the wonderful souls. Faith in Algeria. I'm just going to use one Faith from now on. Hello, Faith. Sophie in Portugal. Ali is in London. Dervish Johnson. Assalam alaikum Sheikh GP. Hello, Dervish. Johnson. Nazarene in Ireland. Sarah in France. Yeah, it's around here. Don't worry about it, sir. Matt Garrett. I'm a lottery millionaire. Yeah, you are. Yeah. And you didn't even buy a ticket. Wait, who is this I? Good question. Who is the I? That is the question, isn't it? When I use the word I, what do I mean? We use it all the time without thinking. We just assume I. But if we start examining that thought I, we find that it refers to our beliefs, our ideas, our experiences, our memories, our pasts, our form, our race, our color, our ethnicity, our nationality, our ideas. We find that I refers to all the things that we acquired. And we will find, if we examine it all the way down to the root, that the roots of the thought of I is the body. I am the body. Now notice, you have to, before you can say the body, you have to say I am. But I am the body was the first assumption. It's the very first thing, and that is the fall. That is the fruit of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. That is what Adam and Eve tasted and immediately identified with their body. That was symbolized by them covering themselves up and hiding themselves from God. The undifferentiated consciousness became differentiated. I am this body. This is the boundary of me. I end here. The world is now out there. And in that moment of separation, I, who undifferentiated infinite consciousness, compress myself into this little tiny shape. And I believe that this is who I am. And so when somebody comes along and says, no, it's not who you are. As a matter of fact, this boundary is imaginary. It's a construct of the mind. It isn't actually a boundary at all. We go, yeah, whatever. we dismiss it. We have to be courageous enough to challenge even the deepest assumptions that are held. Namely, I am the body. I was born. I'm going to die. I have a beginning and an end. I have limitations. All of these things are beliefs. And you could take any one of them and explore it, really probe it to its depths, and you'll find that it's not true. But what happens then is there's an emergence of a struggle between what you're seeing directly yourself and everything you've been taught to believe, which for most of us habitually has had more authority than our own insights. How many times you had an insight about something? I really should do that. But there was all this second guessing going on in your mind and you didn't do it. And you look back and go, damn, I should have done that. I should have done that. I was right, but you didn't trust it. Okay? We're all taught to defer to some external authority, to not trust our own feelings. I mean, that's the heart and soul of the Abrahamic religions. You can't trust your feelings. You must go by the scriptures. The scriptures will tell you what to do because we can't trust you. If we let you just go by yourself, you're going to do all sorts of horrible things, and then God's going to punish you forever. This is what we think. And it manifests itself in the authority, academic authority and scientific authority, and hierarchies of all kinds. all in an attempt to say that, well, just because you see it doesn't make it true. You realize that is the mystic path. The mystic path is the one who has a direct experience, okay? And trusts that experience more than the official narrative or the official authority. Right? Jesus would definitely have been regarded as a conspiracy as conspiracy theorist, probably a conspiracy therapist too. That would work as well. So questioning that I, who is this I who won the lottery? Well, eventually you'll see that I too doesn't really have any solid existence in reality. The one who is witnessing the continual births and deaths, the continual life after life, that one isn't being born and isn't dying. This is the consciousness that I keep pointing you back to, and it is not some grand thing up in the sky. It's not some super state, right? Some super consciousness or super duper consciousness. It is the consciousness that is aware of my words right this moment. The one who's hearing my words, feeling the air around you, seeing the computer in front of you, the place which all the information from the senses is actually being cognized, the point of cognition. That's it. That is the self, the one self. You think it's an individual. I'm seeing it and they're seeing it, but it's not. It is the one consciousness that is seeing it. It is the identity of the actual point of cognition that is the objective, the discovery being sought in non-dual inquiry. Who is it that's actually hearing my words right now? In other words, who are you? I love that question. Who is this I? The lottery millionaire. Hello, GP and everyone. Glad to be here with you and your beautiful energy, and so glad to have your beautiful energy, Marlo. My lot. Namaste, G, from Kieran, Alabama. And Elisa with, yoo-hoo! She's got little party hats or like Dervish Johnson's success. Tatiana in Toronto, Bruce, Lifeline, Matt Hers. Hello, Bruce. Dale, good afternoon from Boston. So good to see you all again. Bruce Playmate, Ioween, it is. Oh boy, already. Let's see. Rosario in Spain. Shirley is not doing it. Sean the Humble in Scotland. Hello, Sean. Yanis, so good to see you. Hello, dear GP from Greece. I feel very sad that I will never have the time to read all those books in search of truth I bought for decades in my past. Depends on that. Back to the self. No, thank God we don't need to read all those books. This is not a path of learning. It's a path of inquiry. Since the object of our study is ourself, books have only a peripheral value, only to the degree that they point you back to the direct inquiry into yourself are they valid. Only the scriptures that do that, only any book, if it doesn't point you back to the ultimate objective, which is the direct knowledge of yourself, they're not worth it. They could only help you, because any book or any teacher, anything can only describe to you, and that's secondhand knowledge, right? It's like me telling you about how wonderful an orange tastes. Oh, it's so great, and texture, the skin, and the smell as the skin comes off, and the juiciness and the sweetness. And I can describe it all day long, and it's meaningless for you. But instead of, if I say, you know what, go over there, buy an orange, peel it off, smell the skin, and take a big bite out of it, then you don't need me anymore. You don't need a book to describe the chemical content and everything that it's made, because you yourself are the object of the inquiry. And since it is you, and you are here, you have immediate access, direct access to the very thing you're trying to discover. You know, if somebody's studying butterflies, right? They collect butterflies and they watch them very closely. They just don't read about them. They go out, they look at them, they study them, you know. Unfortunately, they also take the rings off, they take them apart, they pin them to the wall and stuff like that. But they look at every single detail of it directly, not just through books, right? Now, since you are this object of study, and you alone can engage in it. So you know, you're kind of doing your own field work, right? Not just reading the books. You're going on the archaeological dig. You're so don't be the least bit concerned that you've got all these books and you don't have time to read them, or which ones do you start with, or which ones that are the help. You actually don't need any. There's only a few that I recommend. Conversations with Ramana Maharshi. I recommend I Am That, Nisargadatta. I recommend the Ribhu Gita, the Avadhut Gita, and the Lankavatara Sutra. A handful of things. The Heart Sutra. Handful of things. Okay? And not even all of them. Pick any one. And hang out with it for a while. I think I mentioned when I encountered I Am That, it took me about 2 years to read the first one through. It's not that hard to read, right? I mean, somebody could actually be totally engaged, read it in a week, get enough time. But I would read it, I'd go 2 or 3 sentences, my mind would be blown, and I would just sit with those 2 or 3 sentences for a couple of days. You know, sometimes a couple of hours, but sometimes days, just rereading that same thing over and over again, just soaking in the depth of it. So it took me 2 years to read it the first time. I think ultimately I ended up reading it going through 5 or 6 times. And by the last time, I was finding that it was, I got it. I didn't need to keep coming back, that I was actually doing the very things he was talking about. So I didn't need to do that anymore. I didn't need to consult with the book. You know, you don't need a map of your hometown, right? You know it like the back of your hand. And what could be closer to you than you? What could be? This is actually what makes this study so difficult, because it's so close. You can't look at you. You have to know you in a very different way. You can't step outside and study yourself like you'd study some object. So it becomes a study of this internal environment of feeling, of thought and sensation. And then going beyond feeling and thought and sensation, there's this awareness of something that is aware of emotion, sensation, and thought. And that there's this very subtle, palpable thing there. And even if for a moment thought stops, you're still here. If the emotions are absolutely neutral for a moment, you're still here. If your body's completely relaxed and quiet and there's not a lot of activity of sensation, you're still here. What is that? Now, you can't take that and describe it. You can't draw a picture in a book. You can't make an anatomy chart. You simply, wow, this really is my experience of me. And eventually you see that the only name you can really call it by that makes any sense is consciousness or conscious awareness. And, you know, it's depicted as gods and goddesses throughout all time, Brahma, Vishnu, Shiva, Father, Son, Holy Spirit. These are metaphors that represent that. This sense, this absolute sense of your own being that is silent, it is empty, and yet it is palpably real. But and then you step into the authority of that. So you don't need a lot of books. Your path does not depend on the books that you've read. Matter of fact, sometimes they can even be a hindrance. I mentioned one guy who talked to me. I'd known him for a long time. I'm back and forth on all sorts of different subjects. Every time I talked to him, there was another book he was reading, and then there's book this for him. He was trying out this thing. He was doing this. Fun guy. I loved him to death. And we'd have conversations about stuff. And he'd circle around and come back to me. And then one day he said to me, he said, you know, gee, I mean, what you say is just resonates. I really want you to be my teacher. And I said, okay, all right, I will accept. I'll accept that. So here's your first assignment. For the next month, I want you to read absolutely nothing. Nothing. And just spend time with yourself. It was about a year before I heard from him again. And when I heard from him, it was, hey, I read this new book. Didn't want to look. He didn't want to give that up. He didn't want to give up the mind candy, which we have to. Eventually, we have to give all of that up because it distracts us from being with ourselves. You know, these days it's even easier, right? I can, watch another non-dual YouTube video, right? And now it's just a glut, right? There's just a glut of all sorts of teachings, and now people are even woke, whatever the hell that means. So, yeah, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. You're doing just fine, my friend. Hendrik, Baden-Württemberg near the Swiss border. I'm not exactly familiar with that, but I spent several weeks in Bavaria, drove all around. A friend of mine lent me a little sporty little Cooper Mini. It was just absolutely fun, so fun. Anton, hi GP, can you speak about grief and the death of a loved one? Sure. On a couple of different levels. Today, by the way, it's coffee, almond milk, a little bit of honey, and coconut oil. For those of you, people are curious about what I have in the cup. It kind of looks like a bong, doesn't it? Except there's no smoke coming out of it. Grief is a very natural feeling. When you lose someone that's very close to you, remember, when we say close, what does that mean? I'm close to somebody. Well, it means they're in your inner circle. They're intimate. They're energetically connected in all sorts of different ways, emotionally, psychologically, physically. You know, in the case of a romantic relationship, I mean, you're sharing the same bed. It's the same home. So you can see there's an energetic dynamic. There's a flow of energy that's going on. And whether it be in a family, whether you're living in the same house or close friends or family members, you can see what creates a relationship is just there's this there's this interconnection of energy, isn't there? Now, like everything else in the universe, the energy forms patterns, right? It tends to want to return to those patterns. If I'm in a relationship with someone, I get, I'm used to it. My whole body has adjusted to them being there. The certain expectations, and and it's a beautiful thing, right? That's what intimacy is all about. It's, I mean, life would be rather drab without it. Right? So what happens when someone you're I mean, the flow of you're flowing together, right? And suddenly one of them's gone. What happens? It isn't just the loss of the loved one, it is the loss of an entire way of life. The dynamic, the thing you're so used to isn't there anymore. It's like you're walking with a cane and somebody kicks the cane out from underneath you. Right? Now, what is grief? Grief is the feeling that we experience as the body comes and the whole energy system comes to accept the irrecoverable loss, the loss that is not temporary. This is permanent. And it goes through, stages. There's like, where are they? Because it wants to keep, just like we all want to keep the same thing going. But little by little, it sinks in. It's gone, right? And now comes the need for a recreating of a new flow of energy. And it's unstable. It's uncomfortable. We don't quite know what to do. Our thinking is different, where once all of our decisions that were made were always, I wonder how he'll be with this, how she'll take it. Was she like this? Was she? All of a sudden it's just you in some case, or just, or less of you if it's like a family member. And grief is simply that feeling of the energy adjusting to the new reality. Now, if we resist it, either emotionally not wanting to feel it, right, and using techniques to overcome the feeling of grief, or to be so spiritual, oh no, it doesn't matter, nothing matters anymore, or anything like that, or to reframe it, oh, they're with God now, and things like that. If we do that, we actually interfere with the process that grief is actually trying to accomplish, which is to come back to a state of stability, right? With the fond memory, the lasting imprint of them, that not being lost, but accepting the new reality, which then opens the course up to new experiences. And that doesn't have to take a long time. Matter of fact, if you don't be throwing all sorts of stories on it, why did this happen, and what's going to, and try to reframe it, and where are they now, and any of that stuff, and just be really present with the feelings as they are, that's the shortest distance between grief and recovery. And it's also the way to do it in such a way that you still honor them, because they're still here. Their energy, the energy signature, the energy pattern, that vibration, it's still here, right? You're not the body. Nobody is. What we experience, what we love, what we communion with, what actually forms is an energetic relationship that is there whether the body's there or not. Now, this is hard for us to grasp because we're so used to thinking of the body as presence, and it's not. The body is an appearance. It's a shadow. It's an image on the screen. It's not the actual substance of the beloved one. Understanding that, you can see they never really go anywhere. When Ramana, it was obvious Ramana was on his last legs, that he was leaving the body soon. His followers were like, they were crying, and like, he said, what are you crying about? I'm not going anywhere. Right? If we think they're the body disappears and we think they're gone. The form is gone, right? But the form was a temporary congealing, right? It was a temporary condensation, right? Which is now dissipated. But the energy that expressed itself in that form, in that moment, is that gone anywhere? That energy you feel in you about them, is that not them? Right? And it's a short step from there to the realization that you and them are the same essential energy, that you are one, that nobody's ever lost, nobody was ever born in the first place, nobody can ever die. The forms come and go, but the essence of those forms is your very being. You and them are one. And that's the ultimate answer to the question of grief, the experience of loss finally fulfilling itself in the realization of oneness. Does that help you, Anton? I hope so. I hope so. I've had plenty of grief. Thank you for sharing your wisdom, says Brent. Thank you, Brent. Rosalind, good vibes, Paso Robles, California, in a Walmart parking lot, heading home to catch the rest of the show. I've had people listening in Serbia, Saudi Arabia, Dubai, all sorts of places all over, Nigeria, Algeria, all over the world. But I think that's the first time I've ever had anybody listening it from Walmart. Red Rose, hello, Sonia. I is the filter, says Dervis. I is not. I is the filter for what we see the world. I is the filter for what we see the world. Yes, you could put it that way. Yeah, you could put it that way. But go even further with it. Right? Go even further with it. Who is the one seeing the world through the filter of I? That's what's important. Right? Not the filter, but the one looking through it. Otherwise, you can't actually remove that filter. We need to know the filter is filtering what is being seen. Who's doing the seeing? That must be the true I. The I isn't the filter. The I must be consciousness. The I am. That sense of being. Emir, hi GP Amir from Boulder. Question. Following from your intro, is the true self in you the same as the true self in me? Are there individual souls in addition to there being a cosmic soul? Well, if there is a self, and that self is infinite, how many can there be? Right? In order for there to be souls and a cosmic soul, the cosmic soul must be bigger for sure than this, but it's got a boundary, doesn't it? It's got a form. It is a thing of some sort. Right? You're in Boulder, Colorado. I'm in Seattle, Washington. Is the space you're in different than the space I'm in? Take out all the content, all the stuff in the space. Take away Boulder and Seattle. Take away the Earth, the solar system, all of that. Right? And you're in that point in space, and I'm at a point in space. Is it a different space? Or is that simply the same space? That same space condensing into a form here and a form here. Right? Is it not the same space? It's not a soul. There's not an individual soul. There are individual appearances of one soul. Just the one being. The supreme being is not a being among many. So if being is infinite, there can only be one, which means the one who is speaking and the one who's hearing is the same one. The one who's questioning and the one who's answering is the same one. It must be that way. You can see it logically, you can see it intelligently, intellectually. It must be that way. So now ponder it to the point where you see that the sense of there being a me and a you is an illusion. That's the first illusion that happened with that identification in the body that happened to all of us all the way back. I am this body. And so now the sense of being, which prior to the emergence of that idea, saw it didn't have a sense of self and other. The child does not have a sense of self and other. There's not a mother in me. There's just this undifferentiated consciousness. It's just pure experience. But little by little, the parents keep saying, mommy, daddy, and, baby, whatever the baby's name is. Mommy loves you, right? I remember my granddaughter is 4 now, and I've had the great privilege of being very active in her life, almost from the beginning. I moved from New York there to just be closer. I lived with them for a year and a half. So I got very close. And I watched, it was around 2 years old or so. She would always refer to her, the name is Audrey, as if this body was like something else. Right? Not something else in that sense. It was like there wasn't a sense of other. She just kept, and little by little, every now and then the word I would pop up. I. Until now, she doesn't use that anymore at all. She always says, I, me, mommy, daddy, that sort of thing. And so you can see that it is now solidified into a sense of self that is identified with the body. Now, I'm not troubled by that, because I know there's no way to avoid it. My son's troubled about it because he's aware of this stuff. He's very aware of this path, and practices it. So he's, God, is there some way to avoid it? I don't want him to go through that. I said, nope. No, there isn't. So I literally watched it start to happen, that sense of identification. Now, when that happens, we imagine ourselves to be a distinct entity residing in this form. And if I'm a distinct entity residing in this form, that I am a person in this body, either am the body, or at least I'm a soul in the body, well, then you must be too. So immediately I project this same view of myself on everybody else. And so now there are many souls. And we have whole religious views about what happens to the soul after you die, and the soul's journey. And the soul wanted to experience this, and it wanted to grow. And it's all imaginary. It's all based on this idea that I am the body. And what is the soul? Well, it's just a body that's kind of transparent, and you can stick your hand through it. I mean, really, that's how we think of it. My soul is going to go to heaven, or to hell, or paradise, or I don't know, Walmart. But there's this distinct thing that is this uniquely me. Now, there is a unique me-ness, and I say. There's a uniqueness to every single individual, right? That I'm different than all of you. You're all different from me, right? I have different kinds of characteristics, different kinds of stuff that make up the individual experience, or the individual presence, the individual form that it happens to take. And if you look around, it's infinite. I mean, no two things are alike. I mean, it's mind blowing that in all of creation, nothing repeats itself. Nothing repeats itself. Everything is absolutely unique. From the point of view of me being a person, a soul in this body, I think everything I'm looking at has a soul of some sort. But that's a projection of my mind. Right? If I'm not the person in this body, that if I am nothing but the boundless consciousness, then so is everything else. That everything is, it's not that everything has consciousness, it's that consciousness has everything. One consciousness, of which all of this is a manifestation. The manifestation is unique in all the universe, but it is a manifestation. It is an appearance. It is not the substance. So it looks like an individual being, but in fact, it is the supreme being appearing as an individual. Does that clarify it for you, Amir? You are the cosmic soul. Let's put it simply. You are the self. You are Brahma, Vishnu, Shiva. You are that. You are the cosmic soul experiencing itself from a particular point of reference. And that particular point of reference allows you, the cosmic soul, to experience a universe. Without that single point of reference, there is no universe. It appears, the entire universe appears with the manifestation of this form. Hopefully I didn't go too far for you. So thank you for that. Wonderful. Robert Hill says, hey, G, good vibes. If happiness is within, not outside, why do we keep grasping outside? Why is it so hard to see for most that it's within? I don't even feel it most of the time. Yes. Well, why is it so hard? Why do we keep grasping outside? Because we believe that it's out there. I mean, period, end of story, right? If you've got an old filing cabinet in your house that you cleaned out a long time ago, and you just haven't gotten around to getting rid of it or selling it or something, but it's empty. Do you go back there looking for something? You go back there looking for anything? No, it's empty. You know it, right? But if you don't know that it's empty, right? Or it isn't empty, it seems to not be empty, you're going to keep going back. Oh, it's empty. That's right. There's nothing here. And I wonder if it's in that filing. You're going to keep going back until it sinks in that it isn't there. Now, let's get real. We are bombarded 24/7 with all sorts of marketing and advertising and ideas that it is out there, that it's this car, or it's this political candidate, or it's this bank account, or it's this vacation, or it's this partner, right? That's it. There's your happiness. I mean, open happiness. I mean, one of the sugar water, the most unhealthy stuff on the planet. I mean, it's really rot gut. They say opening happiness. I mean, that's about as absurd as you can get, right? So we're being bombarded constantly with, you have to have this. Oh God, you really need this. This is the best thing in the world. We don't know how to live simply anymore, because this sense of dissatisfaction is being constantly amplified, right? You're constantly bombarded about how much better your life would be, right? If what this makeup will do for you, right? This special thing, or this diet program, or the like. There's a million different ways, but they all sit on top. They're a reaction. They're a cultural implementation of a common experience. The common experience is that, and that happens again the moment we identify with the body. The body's needs become my needs. The body's destiny becomes my destiny. The body's limitations become my limitations. And I feel those as a sense of lack. Something's missing. Of course it is, right? Identification with the body, you have cut yourself off in belief, in imagination, as an illusion, because you can't actually cut yourself off from the infinite, right? The infinite can't be everywhere except here. The infinite is everywhere. But in imagination, you've created a sense of existence that has been cut off from its infinite nature. Now we sense that. Now, it sounds strange, but this is the way it had to happen. This is how the infinite consciousness tastes its own existence, by temporarily cutting itself off. But that little sense of discomfort, right, is the breadcrumb that eventually leads us back, right? Now, at first, it's all outwardly focused. We're having experiences, and for a while, it's great. You have recreational sex, and you have vacations, and you taste a lot of different experiences, and you climb a mountain, or you bungee jump, or all sorts of different things that are really enjoyable, right, for a while. right? And you know, a lot of people, I still get people wanting me to tell them, law of attraction, how to attract their dream life. So we're pursuing a particular kinds of qualities of experiences. But underneath that, there's an ongoing sense of dissatisfaction. Something's missing. Now that feeling that something missing is what's driving our our ambitions. It's driving our attachments. And of course, it's being fed by the culture because everybody's feeling that way, and everybody thinks there's some magic bullet out there somewhere. There's some magic thing that is going to satisfy, and it turns out to be just nothing but a series of experiences. Fine in and of themselves. Fine. There's nothing wrong with having the experiences. But then our entire life becomes about that, and we don't pay attention to that sense of dissatisfaction. So, yes, you're not feeling it all of the time, and most of the time, and you can't, because it's not a feeling. This is right. In our ignorance, we think we're looking for the feeling of happiness, the feeling of satisfaction. Now, the feeling of happiness is contingent upon circumstance. If I get what I want, I feel happy, right? Until another desire arises of something else that I want, and then I feel the absence of it again. And this is the cycle. This is Shiva's wheel. This is how I pursue. This is the dance of birth and death, right? That's the happiness I refer to. It's pleasure. It's relief. It's fun. It's the experience of life. Everything is like that, right? And I have to experience the contrast. If I don't experience the absence, I won't appreciate the presence. I mean, they're in direct proportion to each other. The bigger the desire, the more glorious the fulfillment. But that's an experience of a feeling. And feelings will always be a thing that comes and goes. What we slowly begin to realize, which you have because you're here and asking this question in Satsang, is that which we're seeking isn't an experience. It can't be. I cannot be an experience. I can't be something I experience, because then who's having that experience? Experience is always a flux. Right? It's always a crest and a trough, an ebb and a flow. I'm looking for me, which is not an experience, which is not a coming and going, which is not a beginning and an ending, but that which is absolutely constant. What I'm really searching for is me. Not happiness, not even the experience of happiness. What I find is that me is made of happiness. The attribute of myself is contentment. Sat Chit Ananda, being, consciousness, bliss. This is not the bliss of ecstasy. It's not an ecstatic experience. It's pure peace. It's pure stillness. It's just perfection. So what you're looking for is you, and you are not an experience. You are the one looking. What you are looking for is where you are looking from. So turn your attention away from the emotional state you may be in. And the emotional state you may be in may not be one of consistent happiness, depending on your conditioning, right? You know, some people, like myself, talking to people who are actually therapists about my experience, it's like almost impossible, right? Because it happens so young. My sense of distrust of my family happened so young, before I was even 2 years old, when I got tied into bed for 4 years straight. I mean, I got up, and every night I would be tied into bed. That sense of just a calm, happiness, peace doesn't come naturally, right? I was not conditioned. That was risky to feel that. I had to be on edge. I had to be vigilant. I had to be watching over my shoulder all the time. I could trust no one. I was on my own. And that was a message that sank into my nervous system at a very, very young age, right? So for a very long time, I struggled over this, looking for the feelings of happiness, But my nervous system, it's almost impossible for it to feel that like that. But eventually I found it's somewhere else. It's not there. It isn't in that ebb and flow. It's in the beingness that is aware of that ebb and flow. And now you start looking for what it really is, that sense of your own existence. And notice that that is absolutely rock steady. That is the true contentment. Identifying with that is what stills the storm. How's that, Robert? Mutant 3594. I was having a conversation the other day with Mutant 3506. Just kidding. Gee, I'm someone who has rescued and owned dog families all my life. 2 dogs who were closest to me went missing due to different circumstances. My parents sent the first one away, telling me they were sending her to a farm. The second one got lost while one of my servants took him for a vaccination. Several of my dogs lost their lives over the years, but these 2 have always made me feel guilty and depressed from time to time. I don't know if they're alive or dead or what kind of situation they're in. I imagine the worst usually. How can non-duality help in overcoming my grief here? Well, what's happening is you're feeling a sense that somehow you're responsible for it, that there is something you could have done that would have made it different, and that somehow these dogs were dependent upon you and not on life, and therefore their lives are bad, or at least could be bad, because of you. Now, if you look closely, the light part of that, the truthful part of that, is simply grieving over the loss of something you really love, someone you really love. You know, pets are like people to us. I mean, they're like little persons for us. We're that close to them, sometimes closer than we are to people. And so when they're lost, it's almost like a sense of being irresponsible with your child. And so just being present with the grief of it, of this loss. And we're not God. It's not up to you to decide what the experience of anything is supposed to be. Nobody can keep you from having the experiences that you're destined to have in this life, that you need to have in this life in order to fully come to awakening, to know who you are. That's no different for our 4-footed friends. They each have a destiny. They each have a path to walk, and they're going to walk it. It's going to happen whether we like it or not. Now, if we let go of that and surrender completely to this moment, to say yes to things the way they are, we realize that we're simply a small player. We're just part of the bigger picture. I'm not the cause and effect of things happening. I may play a role in somebody's life, but I'm not the driving force of that life. I may play a role in the life of a dog, or a cat, or a bird, but I'm not the determining factor on it. Their life is their particular trajectory, of which I'm a big player. I come there for a moment, then I'm gone. Even the life of a child. My son said to me yesterday, he says, I've realized that the whole mission of parenthood is letting go. From the moment they arrive, it's a letting go, letting go, letting go. Because every moment something else is coming up, something new is emerging, some new freedom, right? You can't contain them. Right? To really feel that way, what it does is it fully engages you in life. Notice I'm not taking away from the grief in the slightest. Right? I'm putting it into perspective. It makes you fully participate in whatever role you have in anybody's life, whether it's as major as being, the owner of the dog, or a parent, or it's minor as being, someone who happens to, check you out at the grocery store. Every single one of these little interactions is a dynamic in the big flow of life. And if you see that, you're totally present. You're not expecting things to go in a particular way. It hurts when you lose things, but at the same time, there's a peace behind it, because everything's going to be lost at some point, right? Everything. No matter how close you are to it, no matter how much you love it, no matter how dear it is to you, it's going to be lost. This is the nature of life. My son was absolutely accurate. Life is about letting go. It's about letting go. In the letting go, it's not a pushing away. It's not a diminishment. Exactly the opposite. When you stop grasping and you let go and you let life just be what life is, you find the utter perfection of it, the wonder of it, how life takes care of life, how everything is actually quite harmonious. You simply let go of the way you think it should have gone. And then you realize that it's gone exactly the way it was supposed to. And therein you find freedom. I didn't cause this. I'm just part of the play. And now those dogs of yours can just live in your heart without guilt and without diminishing them. And you can just really value them for what they brought you and the time you had together and the beauty of that, knowing that you would have liked it to end in the most normal way after, 15, 20 years with them or something, depending on the breed. Okay? It's just, I miss my 2-year-old granddaughter. She's not here anymore. She's gone forever. And I got my 4-year-old. She's fun. She's really great, but she's going to be gone. And the 5-year-old's going to take her place, and the 10-year-old, and then the teenager that won't be the least bit interested in anything, only come to see grandpa because you're going to complain about mom and dad. Right? Let go, let go, let go, let go. I miss my children at that age, right? They're gone. It's gone. Wow. It just continues to live here. Does that help you, mutant? Robert Dosa, good evening to you, sir. God, we're over an hour already. This is just like zooming by. Ground up from Bruce, you and I. Positive Patty, good evening from Ireland. Good evening to you. Could you speak a little bit about intuition? Sure. Do you know what it is? Everything's intuition, right? What do you think is speaking to you right now? Do you think I have a script? Secretly, I've got written on my hand everything I'm going to say today. It's just the spontaneous appearing, right, of what seems to be the right thing in the moment. Okay? I read a question. I'm intuiting the energy behind the question. Most of the time, intuition is right 100% of the time. We don't always trust it. We don't always understand it, but it's never wrong. We're wrong, right? If you misinterpret it, you're wrong. It's fine. It's absolutely fine. So intuition is basically a sense, just kind of a sense that this is the right way to go. It's there all the time. It never stops. It's the voice of truth. It's the voice of your true self. It's the voice of real intelligence. which is not something that's step by step, reasoned out, logic and that sort of thing. It's a spontaneous knowing that we all have, but we've all been taught not to trust it. We've all been taught to defer to external authorities, right? So I get an intuition. I go, is this right? Should I do this? Oh God, I don't know. What's going to happen? And we second guess ourselves over and over and over again. It really means we're not trusting ourselves. Not trusting intuition means I don't trust me. I don't trust myself that I know what the hell I'm doing. Right? But this is a trust that needs to be gained. The intuition is speaking to you all the time. There's never a moment when it's not. Some might call it the voice of God. Right? Same thing. Inspiration. Same thing. And you just come to trust it. Somebody asks a question, I trust the answer that comes. I don't make it up. No planning in advance. Sometimes you'll see me stop for a second and I'm trying to feel what's behind it. So I actually answer the energy that the question's coming from it and not put my interpretation on the words, right? That's intuition. Right? I'm listening for something else. Try it. Try it. When you're hearing me speak, listen with a part of you that says, yes, that's true. That resonates. That resonating, it's another word we use. That's intuition. It's a sense of, this is true. Something inside of me is going, yes, that's intuition. That's a little bit about intuition. How's that? As if one is outside other. Me, is shared consciousness something that is experienced? Shared consciousness, it's a way, well, if you see it from a non-dual perspective, there aren't two here to share. There's only one consciousness that appears as many. There are not many sharing a consciousness. Now, on an experiential level, it feels as if, because I'm identified with the body, I feel like a separate self. I feel like an individual person, right? I have mutual experiences with people, and I refer to it as shared consciousness. Right? There's a shared beingness, and it's good. It's actually a positive thing. You can get to the point where it feels that way all the time. I mean, every intimate relationship is like that. It becomes a shared consciousness. Two people who really love each other, they just end up reaching for the light switch in the same time. You know exactly what it is they want. You finish each other's sentences and that sort of thing, because there's this sense of intimacy, right? Now, it's intimacy when we see it from the point of view of being this person. Now, it's an advanced position. I'm not trying to discount it. I'm just trying to take it to the next level, right? In order for there to be a shared consciousness, there needs to be more than one being. If there's only one being, it isn't shared consciousness. It is shared being. It is not shared at all. It is one being manifesting itself as an infinite number of forms. Right? So you could say that every form shares the same essence. That would be legitimate to put it in those terms. But there aren't separate entities sharing. The essence is the actual consciousness of all. Does that answer it for you? I am. Robert. Okay, let's see. Jumped ahead. Alrighty, I just had to block that fellow because he's just chattering on about useless things. He's just soaking up time, soaking up space here. Where am I here? Okay. Flying shroomy. I shroomy. How do I deal with arrogance? I often catch myself believing that I got it. Yeah. And start ignoring the present moment, then start slipping back into thinking. Thanks for all the videos. Peace. Well, first off, thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you for noticing it. One of the traps, especially for people who are smart, and who have relied on their intellect and have gained an intellectual experience of the non-dual path, and maybe even some of a direct experience, but still very much more mental. There can be a sense of understanding that can lead to arrogance. And Papa G put it perfectly. He said, the truth cannot reveal itself in an arrogant mind. I've had my bouts with this. Trust me. And looking back at my life and the experiences and the ups and downs that I've done and the mistakes that I made, I've concluded at this point in my life that I just must remain vigilant about it. Right? I just cannot assume that I've gone beyond that. The moment I do, I am wide open, right? I am wide open for that to slip in without me noticing. So I just assume that that's a possibility, that I could once again fall prey to that arrogant sense. And that keeps me vigilant. It keeps me aware. It keeps me watching, never letting go of my guard duty, to be checking the documents of everything that comes in, right? To make sure I'm not letting a spy into my borders. The great gift is that you see it. The problem with arrogance is it becomes blind. And the seeing of it, the recognizing of it, right, is your only true weapon. It's the only thing you really have. Okay? So when you have that sense that comes up and says, I got it. Oh, I got it. Right? Just stop and look, okay, what is it that I have? Right? And you can look and say there's a certain amount of understanding. An insight is something. And then check. Just check into your whole body and the like, right? Is there resistance to this? Right? Is there a feeling coming up of pride? Right? And just notice it, right? Because if you get into a fight with it, you're going to lose, right? Because it's not the kind of thing that you vanquish at will. It's the kind of thing you see it so clearly that it can't trick you anymore. It can't seduce you. It can't hook into what remaining pride or arrogance there is, and pull you astray. Right? Every accomplishment you have, every insight you have, every moment of awakening you have is a gift of grace. You did not do any of it. None of us earned the right to be born a human, earned the right to hear the Dharma. None of us earned this place where we can have a great understanding and get it. None of us earned it. By grace, you are saved, and not that of ourselves, lest any man should boast. St. Paul put it that way, and it's brilliant. Every thought, the thought now that even to be aware of the arrogance is grace. And what is grace? The appearance of the true self, or which we've named God. It is God that has revealed the arrogance. It is God that has brought you here. every impulse you have towards awakening is not a personal choice. It is the disappearance of the false self and the appearance of the true. At this point, we are still identified with the false self to a certain degree. So it feels like something moving us and then us making a choice to go along with it. But the moving and the choosing were not of your making. None of this was. If you really see that, arrogance will be banished. Remain vigilant about it. Do not assume, right? Believe me, when you've really got it, you'll know it, right? When you're a Buddha, you'll know you're a Buddha. Until then, just assume that there's something you're not seeing. Just assume there's a blind spot there, and let that inform your humility. And just say, I don't know. Another thing you do is look at the people you regard as teachers. Do you strive to feel like you're equal to them? You want to do what they do, right? I mean, there's all sorts of ways you can look to check, right? In fact, how much love do you have for the true masters of the world, right? It's one of the ways I check by how do I feel about my own teacher. Right? Now, I'm a candle standing next to the sun compared to Muji. And that's the way I see it. And I will continue to see it that way. Right? Because that keeps me in that state of awe that doesn't let me fall into it, even though sometimes I do. Right? So sometimes that feeling will come, oh man. And I go, wait, stop. I know you. I know you. Not this time. Not this time, Mr. Satan. Get thee hence. and yes, you'll find that it pulls you into your mind, right? But no, I can feel the desire in your heart, right? That the origin of that desire to transcend that arrogance is coming from the true self. Surrender to the true self. It is guiding you. As Rumi put it, the power that brought me here must bring me home. Right? It's not of yourself. Recognize that, right? And you'll be grateful for those moments when you see the arrogance. You say, thank you, thank you. Thank you for showing me that. Thank you. Thank you for purging me. Purge me of all ego and replace me with you. I find that kind of religious sentiment, that kind of humble surrender to God, is the best remedy for arrogance. Yeah, it doesn't seem like it's purely non-dual, right? Because it's not this, well, who would there be to surrender? But as you can tell, that's an open door for arrogance. Whereas the surrender to God, there's no room for arrogance there. Right? Now, that surrender combined with the precision of Vedantic inquiry, you got it. That you do get. So thank you for that question. Thank you. That really means a lot when I see that. Sizvi, hi there. Can you please explain soul values? Well, I'm not exactly sure what you mean by that. To me, I would see. I mean, a soul value would be something truly valuable. It would be the way truth values things, right? It would be, what's the most meaningful thing in the world? Really meaningful, the true meaning of things, not a relative meaning, right? This has particular value to me. This has a value to me, but it's a relative value, right? These lights I have around, so you can all see me on the camera. They've got value to me, right? They're very valuable right in this moment. They're very, very important. They have an absolute value? Absolutely not. When I'm done here, there's some pre-recorded videos I have to do for my workshops or the training I'm doing. But then what I do, I turn them off, right? I fold them all up. I put them in a closet, so I have this room back again, right? So they don't have that kind of a value. So what are the values that are transcendent, that are permanent, that don't come and go, that aren't dependent upon something else? Well, love. That one pops right to mind. Love is a value that is not relative. You could tell the difference between something that's loving and it isn't. It's an absolute standard, right? All the way up to pure, absolute, unconditional love, which is a total surrender to the moment. Truth. We all have a sense of what the truth is, right? And things that can be relatively true, right? True, but they're being compared to what? They're being compared to an absolute value of truth. If I say this is truer, compared to what? There's an inherent standard. There's an inherent sense of value, a soul value, if you will, that knows that this is closer to the truth than this is. That's not relative, is it? Beauty. Right? Now, here's the example. I mean, Justin Bieber or Beethoven? Which one's more beautiful? Which one's more profound? Well, it's obvious, right? It's not that, Justin Bieber isn't a talented kid and the music's pretty good, but nobody's going to be listening to it 300 years, 3 years from now, let alone 300 years from now, like Beethoven. And by that time, we'll still be listening to Beethoven 600 years after he's gone. So it's relative. It doesn't diminish, right? But it reveals that within us is something inherent that sees the absolute standard of it, the absolute value of something, the infinite value of something. And from this place, all the relative value can be assessed and enjoyed, right? Because it's being seen against this background of perfect value, of perfect truth, perfect beauty, perfect love, perfect soul. I mean, soul has got its own kind of quality to it. When I think of soul, I think of richness and music, and the music I grew up on, jazz and rock and roll and blues and black music, basically. It's where, where it came from. It just was rich. It was earthy, right? It had this obvious quality to it. When I was, I learned how to play music when I was very young. I was a teeny bopper at 12 years old. I'm playing in bands. We're playing the top 40 tunes. I would be playing some Motown tunes and Sam and Dave, but I had no, Little Richard, I had no idea. I mean, it was just, it was just a song. There was nothing there. I remember, though, I was about 15 years old. And for the first time, I heard B.B. King. And it's like something inside me just went, something just twisted around. It was like, I felt like I was standing in the presence of God. It was like something in my soul just exploded. And from that moment on, I could hear the difference between an authentic musician, somebody who their soul was coming out, and somebody who was just, maybe even they were very good, but it didn't, there wasn't, something was missing. In some cases, it was derivative. But then I heard B.B. King, and then of course I heard Muddy Waters and Chicago Slim, Paul Butterfield. All these guys played in my neighborhood, and Steve Goodman. I mean, not my neighborhood, not far. It was a 30-cent train ride into Chicago, and I got to see all of these incredible performers of the blues and jazz and all of this kind of stuff. I was like, I got an aesthetic education. That sense of me really developed. And it was obvious to me, even at the time, that I was experiencing something that was not an opinion, that there really was this scale that was truthful. And it wasn't it wasn't an arrogant, although I was arrogant about it. I confess. I do have to confess. But I could see later as I matured that there wasn't an arrogance about it. It was simply a fact, right? And that it was really quite a great gift, an artistic gift. I mean, it turned me into being just some guy who was playing it into an artist. Right? So there is soul value, right? If I'm understanding your question correctly, and I hope I am. But when you use that term soul values, that's what it means. That's what it means to me. So thank you for that, Sisvi. Red Rose. Sonia, I just applied for a job. It would be nice if I get it, but I know that if it's for me, it will be, because you say we don't choose. Should I even bother to care or put an intention into prayer? Well, of course you should, right? When I say you don't really choose, that doesn't mean you don't care. Of course you care, right? The more you care, the more heart and beauty there is in it. Because the more you care, and the more, if you lay what you really care about on the altar of surrender to God, that's a true sacrifice. That's a genuine offering. Somebody who says, okay, yeah, I know I don't choose. It's okay. I don't care whether I get it or not. I'll leave it all to you, God. Can you feel the difference? God's going, oh yeah, great, thanks. Right? But if it's like, I really want this. I really do want this. But I surrender it to you. That is an offering of the heart. Remember Christ in the Garden of Gethsemane, Father, if it's possible, can this cup pass from me? Now look, if he could pray for something like that and then say, not my will, but thine be done, that's a model we can follow. Of course, let yourself desire. Let yourself want it. Don't deny that, and simultaneously surrender it. Right? That is real prayer, right? I teach non-dual inquiry, the inquiry into the nature of the self, of the sense of I. But as you can tell, it's not just that, right? There's this whole element of surrender to God, and I don't mind putting it in those terms. Now, when I use that word God, I'm not talking about some being up in the sky who's demanding my attention, who's laid a bunch of laws down. He's the great enforcer, and eventually maybe a rewarder, probably not. What I'm talking about is something deep within each one of us, and we're reaching in to God. What is God but a metaphor for whatever the absolute truth is, whatever that absolute pure love is? We're reaching for that. But you didn't choose to have the desire either, right? That desire for it. Say, oh, I'm not choosing this. Well, then the desire in all of its intensity, you didn't choose either. That too is a gift. That too is grace. That too is coming, right? It's not just the things that I think I want. It's the wanting itself. So honor that. That too is God. Give that back to where it came from. I see. This is your desire. What God you desire for me is what you desire for you. I'm all yours. You feel the difference in that. So pray, care. You can't say, do I even bother to care? Do you care? Of course you do. So even the question, do I bother to care, as if it was a choice. You care. You have an intention for it. You want to do that. I'd be extremely disappointed if I couldn't do this, right? If for whatever reason I couldn't do this anymore, right? Or if nobody ever came, right? It's like I just sit here going on, me and my camera, having a lively conversation. I would be disappointed about that, right? I get excited when I see more people are coming, right? It's wonderful. right? And I also feel, if some days when there's not a lot of people, I kind of, right? Of course I feel that. And then I let it, and then I give it up. I let it go. It's like, okay, into thy hands I commit my spirit. And so this is the opportunity. That's what prayer is. It is this being in between the depth of our desire and the depth of our willingness to surrender. This is the place to live. This is where life happens. Oh, thank you, Sonia. Let's see. Hi to all from New York. Hi, Susan and Christine in Michigan. What a name, Christina Baticelli Leftwich. Wow, what a great name. GP Walsh. God, I'm so drab compared to some of the names there. Susan LaMonica. That's musical. In New York. Thanks, GP, for this. You're very welcome. Jay. Hello, G. And all, thank you for the surprise live broadcast last week. Afterwards, I did an inquiry into what is like after the death of the body. And what came to me is we fall into that deep state of sleep every night where there is no knowledge of the body, mind, and its functions. And even the thought of who am I is just pure bliss. Perfect. Absolutely perfect, yes. That metaphor of our deep sleep every night is we drop the body, we drop the mind. There's not even a sense of I am. And then the manifest universe comes back to us. And this is the cycle. Moon cycle, the sun cycle. It's beautiful. Thank you. No need for books. You are it. But it's absolutely true. But let's put it this way. There's no absolute need for the book. There's only a need for the book when there's a need for the book. I had a need for the book, I Am That. Absolutely. I had a need for the book, the Heart Sutra, the Lankavatara Sutra. I had a need for that. It is not a need for books, but you will have need for a book. You may have need for a book. So it's not absolutely. Your spiritual awakening does not depend on books. It depends on the grace appearing in your open and receptive consciousness. And that can come just as pure inspiration. It can come as a teacher. It can come as a sudden seeing. It can come as a book. It can come as a YouTube video. So it isn't we have to be able to discern when we are going to a book to distract ourselves from feeling because there's something uncomfortable we don't want to deal with. And the same thing is true of going to scrolling through Facebook or going to YouTube videos or any of that. We have to discern, right? Sometimes I put this all aside and I watch a stupid movie, right? For the sake of the stupid movie. I'm not looking for anything in that movie other than a stupid movie, right? And in that case, it absolutely fulfills the requirement. It's exactly what I need at that moment. So it's not an utter dismissal of it all, right? Like that friend of mine I said about it. It was just it was an obsession. It was an addiction to not feel. So. Just a little comment about that. Positive Petty. Do you believe that all is already created for us? All we must do is manifest it into reality? Or do you feel all is created for each of us? Discuss. Well, it's not like that. It's not like the Abraham Hicks vortex, right? Where if I desire something, it's like this huge cosmic vault where all the things I want appear, are stored, and then somehow I got to raise my vibration, and then it's going to magically appear. The potential for everything exists. That's the nature of consciousness. Consciousness is that infinite substance that can produce any form. There's no limits on the forms that it can produce. And what you are seeing around you right now is the manifestation. It is manifest consciousness. So it's not like something exists and then you manifest it. Well, who are you, right? Is not this body itself a manifestation? You didn't manifest this, did you? Who's the actual essence of which everything is a manifestation? Remember, manifestation simply means it is the appearance of something else. It's how something appears in the world. It's really more of a reflection, right? It itself has no substance. The reflection in the mirror has no substance. There's nobody there, right? That's what manifestation means. It is, the Himalayan mountains, I think Mount Everest is 36,000 some odd feet high, right? Now that's up where jets fly, right? So you could be on a jet airliner and be looking, and Mount Everest would still be higher than you, right? They fly anywhere from 28,000 to 40,000 feet. That's the range of commercial airlines, right? Now those mountains, they're enormous and there's a lot of them, but they're a manifestation. Somebody didn't come and pile a bunch of dirt there. Right? They're a manifestation of incredibly powerful forces below the surface that you cannot see, that collided and literally pushed them into existence, pushed them into form. So the Himalayan mountains are not a thing. They are a manifestation of a powerful invisible force. And that force right now is in a stable state. The Pacific Ocean, the Pacific Shelf, same thing. It right now is in an unstable state. That's the San Andreas fault line that runs up the west coast, which are two tectonic plates, and that cause the various phenomena that we experience. The forces that are the force that is creating the universe is not personal. You don't create anything. I'm going to be doing a workshop sometime in the month of March. I'm trying to figure out when, because I'm doing a retreat at the end of the month. And it's called The Four Amazing Powers of Creation. And the point I make right at the beginning, the very longest section, is talking about the nature of creation itself. The creation is not an act of will. It is not something you do. It's something that just happens, like the mountains. Nobody did the mountains. They were the inevitable byproduct of an invisible force. There's an invisible force operating in every single one of us. What you are is an environment in which creation takes place. And I'll go into detail how it gets shaped and the like. But it's kind of like, think of a piece of music, right? Now, we can't think of a piece of music without thinking of it in a certain form, right? You hear a song by somebody you like, a Beatles song or something, right? Or a standard, right? Some standard. And then you hear a jazz player do it. And then you hear a solo piano player do it. Maybe you then hear a choir do it. And then you hear a rock band do the same song, right? Or a country band do the same song. Or you hear, Pavarotti sing it, right? And then Mick Jagger sing it. Same song. Now, what's the essence of the song? The song is the creation, isn't it? But we never experience the song as a pure creation. It becomes a potential. And when it gets realized, it's simply temporarily in a form. Right? And we hear that particular form, but the form it takes, right, is completely different every single time. And even the same band playing it won't play it the same way the next time. This is the nature of life. You, me, everything is that one power appearing in all sorts of different ways. We are the one song being sung, the universe, right? The one song and the one singer, right? But there's an infinite number of ways in which that song is rendered and interpreted. That's what you are as an individual life. You're not a thing. You're a flow. You're an environment in which creation is experienced, right? So to realize that you're not even really a co-creator, you're a witness. You're a witness to creation. And your job is simply be the most receptive and open witness, a witness without preferences. The witness without preference experiences creation as it was meant to be. The witness with preference is trying to grab and squeeze it and turn it into what, and thinking what it wants is what creation is supposed to be producing. And what it wants is the thing driving creation. It's not. If that were the case, then there could be no flowers, there could be no trees, there could be no cats, dogs, wildebeests, fish, whales, right? You didn't manifest those. Where'd they come from? Where did you come from? Where did this body come from? Go beyond the personal sense of wanting and manifestation, and you will discover that manifestation is happening every single second, and you're not doing it. And then you surrender to it. Hopefully that helps you, positive Patty. I can't help saying that without putting it in an Irish accent. Positive Patty. Stephanos. Hello, Stephanos. Hello from Greece. If we have no free will, no decision, how can we trust our instinct and do or not do something? Well, when I say there's no free will, there's no decision. I don't say that there's no decisions being made, right? What I'm saying is that you're not the creator of the deciding thought. Just look at what the experience is, right? And everyone in life, we come into situations, there's always going to go this way or this way, right? Sometimes it's really important. It's going to have a huge impact on every decision, no matter what it is, changes the trajectory of your life. And so every decision actually is important. And what looks like a little decision can have huge consequences, can create a completely different life than we were expecting, right? What happens, though, is that a choosing thought arises. At some point, something says, this is the way we go, and we go. That is intuition, right? A few thoughts later, we think, I chose that. That's why I say there's no free will. It's not choosing isn't happening. It's just there's no chooser. This is simply the flow of life. Now, we think, right, that this choosing thought has been made, and we project on that what we're expecting to happen, what we think this is leading to. And then when it doesn't lead to that, we say, oh, I made a bad decision. Or if it does, that was the right decision. Now, I'm just inviting you to look back at this whole thing in slow motion and recognize that you didn't create the choosing thought, which meant it is the right decision. It's going exactly where it needs to, but you have a different idea of where it's supposed to go. So choosing happens, but there's no chooser. There's no decider, but there's clearly decisions. If you see that, right, of course you're not, it's impossible. I'm not going to do anything. There's another choosing thought, isn't there? You can't help it. You can't help it. You are going to be doing. Life is flowing because you can't stop it, right? So everything involves that. What I'm trying to do is free you from the idea of it being this big burden or personal responsibility or personal blame. I made this decision and it turned out horribly. Oh my God, I'm such a terrible person. Or I made this decision and wow, was it great? Am I cool or what? Both of those are naive. Right? Look for yourself. Look at that moment when the decision is made and the energy then gathers behind it and starts heading in that direction. And what you'll find is not you making a decision, but the spontaneous appearing of a thought and the energy behind that thought that then moves life in a certain direction. And if you let go of the responsibility of that, you'll simply hop on your surfboard and ride that wave wherever it happens to go. And if there's no preference for where it's going, if you don't think it's supposed to go there and it's going over here, your life will be rich and full of surprises and wonders. And also you'll learn the real meaning of harmonizing with love. You'll learn the real meaning of the Tao. You will be the master of the Tao. The master of the Tao rides the wave, doesn't control it. He knows there's nothing to control. He's the enlightened witness of the entire thing, going along for the ride and enjoying every minute of it. Does that help, Stephanos? I'll give you a different slant on that, because it's a big one. It can make us feel quite crippled if we think nobody's making a decision, then no decisions are being made. Well, obviously decisions are being made. The question is, who's making them? Not you. It's such a relief, and saves you from blame and arrogance. It saves you for patting yourself on the back for what a great job I've done, or castigating yourself because you've ruined your life. No, you haven't. Dervish says we resource books to avoid looking at our own selves. Very much can be. We have to be very alert and vigilant about that. Don't let anything become a distraction. Positive Patty, I am what I am, neither with form nor formless, neither conscious nor unconscious. I am outside of all these categories. Do you truly understand that? Okay. I mean, what you just said could have been right out of the Ribhu Gita. I am that by which I know that I am. I am neither form nor formless. I am neither empty nor full. I am neither alive nor dead. I am neither absolute or relative. I neither exist nor do I not exist. I'm outside of all categories. The only I, is outside of all categories, because in the pure I, what is there to compare it to? That is the transcendent. It's the Tao that cannot be spoken, and yet it's you. It's that which is hearing my words right now, that which is transcendent and outside of all categories. The I is experiencing us right now. Beautiful. Thank you, Pat. Thank you, Patty. Victor, gee, was there a moment when your ego fell away and the truth was just so clear and obvious? Or was it gradual? Is it the same for all on this path? That there's a single moment you realize this? I only know of a couple of examples in all of history, Steve Jourdain, Ramana Maharshi, where within a very short period of time, the entire thing fell away and it was gone for good. That's it. I don't know anybody other than them. It did for Eckhart Tolle, but that was after 29 years of just incredible suffering, just constant mental anguish, right? So I can't really say it was that, it was sudden. So it was that, but it wasn't like Steve Jourdain and Ramana Maharshi, where it was like 2 hours. They're both just normal 16-year-old boys, right? Chasing girls. And well, Steve Jourdain was in France. Ramana was in India. So a little bit different than that. No interest in spirituality or anything like that. And in 2 hours, something just kind of came over them and it was gone completely. It wasn't the case for the Buddha, right? He did incredibly austere practices in like 6-7 years, invested in it. Nisargadatta, 3.5 years just of this constant inquiry, right? So for me, probably the first glimpse I had, I was like 17 years old. The first one that I remember times, things, I remember a very young child trying to imagine what it was like to not exist, to die. What would you die and there was nothing? And I found it, I was curious because I was dead, everything was gone, but I was still there, right? I mean, that's the beautiful naivete of a child. Right? I was still, I had no words for it at the time. I remember sitting in the bathtub by myself with the water running, like 4 years old or something, pondering this. But when 17, there was something that happened that sunk deep into me when I couldn't tell whether or not, whether what I was experiencing as objective reality was objective. I couldn't tell. Was I hallucinating this? All of this? Right? Was it real? How do I know? And I realized I didn't have any way of knowing, which kind of set me on the path. Then I had that experience of original innocence. And so it for me, it has been these periodic explosions, right? Then the aperture closes again, right? And there's an integration that takes place. And it has a transformative effect that begins to affect everything I'm doing. And, the wisdom begins to, and more compassion and slower to anger and that sort of stuff. And old material starts coming up and processing. And I think that's the way it is for most. The Ramana Maharshis, the Steve Jordanes, they're very rare, right? Very rare. For most, there's a practice, there's a glimpse, there's a falling back. There's kind of a pulsing that is going on. But all of it, the explosive moments, and then the moment, the periods of integration, you eventually see that all of that is being witnessed by something. And then you realize that the seeking and the seeker are both being watched by the sought. And that the whole process of awakening, the whole experience of awakening itself becomes yet another experience that you transcend. And it's a completely different place. That's all I can say about it. It's a completely different place. Even the awakening is just another event that appears to it. And this is simply myself. That's all I can say about it. It's me and nothing else. So, yeah, it's important to get this because there's such a there's the Hollywood awakening, right? It's glorious. We read all these stories about these extraordinary experiences people had and they saw lights and all that kind of stuff, right? Well, if you saw the lights, I still ask the question, who's seeing the lights? If they can't answer that question, that it was just a glorious peak experience. It wasn't an awakening. It was a falling away to a certain extent. It was a shift in perception. It was a seeing the world differently in a profound way, like a near-death experience or a mushroom trip or an ayahuasca journey, right? That same kind of thing can happen, but they're only experiences. The question, who is having the experience, is what the answer has to be. And that's not a Hollywood epic. That's not Cecil B. DeMille. That is the simple recognition that it's me. I'm what I've been seeking this whole time. I've been here the whole damn time. And then the seeking can truly begin to stop in earnest. But even then, there's an integration that takes place. There's lifetimes of habit energy that's moving. But even that is seen to be part of the dream. But it's all part of the play that must fulfill itself completely. So simply surrender to how the awakening is a theme, like I was talking before about the song, right? That can be played 1,000 different ways. The awakening is the universal theme of the universe that is playing itself out in your life, as my life, as the life of the Buddha, as the life of Ramana Maharshi. The life you are leading right now is the Buddha story. It is the same theme over and over and over again. The ordinary human being is the Buddha. Susan, I saw Dark Night of the Soul referenced as Dark Night of the Ego. This changed pathos to humor almost instantaneously. I keep thinking, but what has happened is bad. You screwed that up, and it just gets funnier. What has happened? Well, yes. Yeah, it's only a dark night for that which is not you. I mean, it's a very dark night for that because it's going to fall away forever. But we still think there's this part of us, because it's still identified with the egoic mind, right? Feels like it's losing something, and that's what we feel is the dark night, right? Because we think we're losing something of value with that ego, and that holding on is what gives it the sting. And eventually you realize that you have no choice, right? And you don't even know how to get rid of it. You know how to let go of it. If we knew how to let go of the ego, we would. We don't even know how to do it. It's so subtle, and its tentacles are everywhere. It's got, right? I mean, it's everywhere. It can be overwhelming. And so it brings us to our knees of surrender, right? And that's kind of the darkness. It's like Christ in the Garden of Gethsemane, having to wrestle with our own surrender. The more surrendered you are, the easier it is, right? Because yes, it is the ego that is struggling, but the only thing that keeps the ego alive is our identification with it. The ego is not a thing that can struggle, right? It's not Pac-Man gobbling you up, right? It exists only as an energy in the nervous system, as just an energetic pattern, as a habit pattern of mind and feeling and sensation. And the only thing that sustains us is what remains of identification. The process of coming free is being liberated from that identification, but we're so tied to it, it feels like, oh my God, I'm losing, I'm dying, right? That's what we think is the dark night. When you see it, you go, oh my God, this is hysterical. This is truly funny. I'm not losing anything. It's like cutting my hair. I'm not losing anything. Right? The only thing I'm losing is what I never was in the first place. But I was so attached to it. It's so important to me. My desires, my aspirations, my ambitions. What do you mean I have to let go of what I want? I define what I want. What about the life of my dreams, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera? These little things we keep holding on to. That's what turns it into a dark night of the soul, right? But of course, it's this one. We love the drama of it. Oh, dark night of the soul. I'm going through. God is calling me. Oh my God, we can turn that into a nice little Hollywood epic as well. Cue the violins. That is very, very funny. Yeah. Let's see. Ali, hi G. When it said everything is inside, yet to me it looks outside, how does one see? Oh my God, it's 2 hours already. Oh my God, I got a ton more. Okay. How does one see inside what to focus on? How do you go inside to see truly? Oh, this is easy. This is an easy one. Very, very good. Yeah. Where's in? You need to look inside. Where's inside? like this? Do I need to have an open heart and take a look around? Do I need to get an ultrasound? Right? What do you mean by inside? It's a spiritual direction, spiritual dimension. It's not a direction like over there in here. We do this, look within, and, put your hand on your chest, but this is symbolic, right? This is kind of like this. Namaste. This is symbolic gesture, trying to refer to the heart, the spiritual heart, which is the heart of the matter, the essence of the whole thing. Here's what you do. You simply, in meditation or contemplation, you're simply withdrawing attention from that which normally gets it. That's all there is to it. I'm normally very engaged with thoughts. So I try to take a step back and watch my thoughts without getting engaged with them, right? Without getting into the story. Just see them as tourists. They're just passing through, right? Same thing with the feelings and sensations. It is a withdrawing away from what's our attention, which is normally focused outwards, and oftentimes it has to be. My mind's focused outward right now. It needs to be focused, otherwise I'd just be sitting around. I couldn't answer any questions, right? So you're simply bringing your attention back, right? You're noticing thoughts, you're noticing emotions, you're noticing sensations, but you're not logging in. So now you're just witnessing. Now you're a step in closer to you, right? Because attention is coming inward. But this isn't really a dimension inward. This isn't like a physical dimension, is it? Right? But this is the real in that we're talking about. And you can only tell the in reference to the fact that it is withdrawing from that which is out. I mean, the moment you close your eyes and sit in a quiet room or listen to very quiet music, you have taken your attention away from what normally gets it, right? And so immediately you close your eyes and your attention goes inward. That is, at this point, it's more felt. If the room is quiet, right, then there's not a lot distracting your ears. You're not eating anything. There's no fragrances, right? Or maybe there is like an incense or something, but it's not something that's grabbing your interest. And so your interest is withdrawing. And now you're just in this place where all your normal experience has been put on hold. And now you're further in. But then you realize that thought, emotion, and sensation are also being experienced. They're much closer. They're much more subtle, for sure. They feel like they're inside the body rather than outside, but you're still aware of them. They're still not all the way in. They're in the body, in this field of the body, but there's something even more subtle than them, right? Now that's getting closer to you, isn't it? Because there's not much left to withdraw attention from. And at that point, you can have there's this feeling, there's this kind of this sense of that I am. There's something here, right? I don't know what it is yet, but attention is now completely withdrawn away from everything else. Everything that is perceivable at all has been left outside of perception. And so now you're perceiving not with your senses and not with the mind. Something else has begun to perceive. And there's a very subtle sense of being that isn't moving, it isn't changing. You realize it's been there the whole time. It doesn't seem, looking directly at that, it doesn't seem to have a beginning or an end. It doesn't seem to have any boundaries. It isn't a form. It's not like thought or emotion, sensation, or any of our experience. It's something else altogether. Now I'm almost all the way in. I'm at the place of I am, the sense I am. And then you could stay there for a very long time. In fact, that's as far as attention can go. It's the last perceivable. Because there's a sense that's being perceived. And then something recognizes that there's something even more subtle that is perceiving this. Isn't that you? Who else is it? That's you. That's the in. All it means is I'm going away from everything that isn't me to that which is me. This is me. Without thought, without emotion, without experience, without sensation, without memory, without association, without a future, without a past. Even without the sense I am. The pure knowingness awareness, Sat Chit Ananda. The pure Brahma self. I think I'm going to leave it at that. I have so many more. Questions here, but I'm kind of like thinking we should leave it at that. Yeah, because all the questions and the like, that little exercise I just shared with you. That is the answer. You are the answer to all the questions. It is ultimately what you are seeking. The answer you want is the answer to who am I? You're the answer. Right? The process, if I can call it that, is to remove everything that isn't you. And that little guidance on a meditation I just gave you, that's exactly what it does. It takes you out of everything that isn't you. And what's left is just you. You and nothing but you. Not you as something, not you in any kind of form or name or anything, just pure being. Boundless, formless, nameless, perfect, eternal, innocent, infinite. The true self. So there's just no way in the world that gets rid of all these questions anyway. So I think I'm just gonna let it go with that for now, with that little exercise. I encourage you to do it. Every one of my meditations that I do is a variation on that to get you all the way in to where there's nothing left but you. And in that place, the infinite you can reveal itself to itself. This is what's called self-realization. Thank you all. I love you all. See you next week. Maybe before. Namaste.